The Buffalo Bills enter the offseason north of $50 million over the salary cap, but can find considerable cap space by extending the contracts of three very reliable players. I'll show you how today on Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino, author of Go Bills and Buffalo's Run, also the co-host of the Locked On NFL Scouting podcast, and I'm your host of Locked On Bills. I want to thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day, and a big welcome and shout out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who never miss a single episode, I appreciate y'all being here very, very much. I'd also like to invite you to subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Well, folks, welcome in. I want to talk about some opportunities that the Buffalo Bills have to improve their cap position by extending three very reliable players. And as you know, the Bills enter this offseason north of $50 million over the salary cap. Now, look, there's been some good news on that, some potential good news on that. And this projection that the Bills are $50 million over the cap is based on the assumption that the NFL salary cap will be $242 million. So you have $242 million to spend on players. Well, Mike Florio reported this past week of Pro Football Talk that there is some belief out there that the cap could actually not be $242 million, that it could be as high as $250 million. Now, obviously, that would be welcome news for the Buffalo Bills, who would then have $7-8 million less in cap space to find. And so that would be significant. That would be, potentially a fairly significant free agent addition that would be able to be signed if you had another $7-8 million in cap space, but also you have that much less space to have to manipulate and figure out. And so one thing you do with teams like the Bills is you restructure contracts, you cut players, you release players, you maybe have some pay cuts, but another vehicle for creating cap space is extending players. The Bills have done this throughout the years, whether it's been Stephon Diggs, Ed Oliver, Matt Milano as recent examples of players that they extended, and those extensions created cap space for the Buffalo Bills. And I think they have the opportunity to do that right now with three players, Dion Dawkins, Taron Johnson, and Rasul Douglas. And so today, I'm going to explore all three of those situations to see where those contract extensions could come in and how they could be used to gain 2024 cap space while simultaneously locking in three core foundational pieces of the roster that are reliable players and that are consistent performers. So let's do it. Let's break this all down. Let's start with Dion Dawkins here. Dion Dawkins, the Bills' starting left tackle, 29 years old. He turns 30 in April. Dion Dawkins is in the final year of his contract. So he's playing on the last year. It's 4-year, $58.3 million deal. And his 2024 cap hit is scheduled to be $16.6 million. And so Dawkins, to me, is an extremely logical contract extension candidate. He's a consistent performer. I mean, the dude's been to the last three Pro Bowls. He's been named. That's a heck of an accomplishment. And he means a lot to the team. He's a leader. He's accountable. He's a guy that, after games, Dion Dawkins is going to meet with the media. He's going to answer the questions. He's going to stand there and be accountable every single time. The last 2 years, he's been the team's Walter Payton Man of the Year award winner. And then, of course, that gives him the opportunity to be considered among all 32 of those, but he's been that guy for the Buffalo Bills each of the last 2 seasons. He's been a durable player. Dion Dawkins has missed a total of 2 games in his NFL career. Out of 114 possible games, Dion Dawkins has missed 2. That's it. And so it just makes so much sense. Think about the trajectory of his career, the consistency of how he performs. I mean, this guy's an upper echelon left tackle in the NFL, in my opinion. You know, he's a very good pass blocker, and the run blocking has just been phenomenal lately, especially this past year. We talk so much about the tackle wrap play where they pull Dion Dawkins backside, then he becomes a play side blocker, and you saw his athleticism, his power, his football intelligence really shine doing that. And, of course, they love to run it right behind Dion Dawkins when he's lined up at left tackle. And so a lot of this offense runs through Dion Dawkins. And I know that's not a common thing to say about offensive linemen, but that's the type of impact that he has on this offense and on this football team. And so he's a very logical player, in my opinion, to extend. And like I mentioned, he's 29, he turns 30 in April. There's no reason for me to believe that Dion Dawkins doesn't have at least 3 more high caliber seasons, maybe 4 or 5, right? I have no reason to believe that he's in decline. He's a guy that's very athletically gifted. It sounds like over the last few years, he's really unlocked his own off-season regimens to figure out what really works for him to get ready for a season. I think that's been a big part of his growth. And so I just don't have a lot of concerns about a drop-off. And so I'd love for the Bills to stay further committed to Dion Dawkins. And certainly he's playing on the final year of his deal. He's absolutely earned an extension. And so what does that extension look like, and what type of cap savings exists for the Buffalo Bills if they do this? Well, in terms of his average annual value, SpotRack.com has his AAV, average annual value, at $17.8 million per season. One thing I like to do is look at comparable contracts that were signed by similar players in terms of, quality of player, but also in terms of age. And there's 3 parallels that make a lot of sense to me. The one that is the most logical is Jake Matthews, the left tackle for the Atlanta Falcons, at age 30, which is basically what Dion Dawkins is going to be for this contract extension that I'm proposing. So Jake Matthews at age 30 in 2022 signed a 3-year, $55 million extension with the Atlanta Falcons. That paid him on average $18.3 million. Very similar situation with Jake Matthews, a long-term starting left tackle, durable, dependable, high-level performer, and they signed him to that deal. Here's another one, David Bakhtiari at age 29 from the Green Bay Packers. And this is not, since he signed this extension, David Bakhtiari's just been extremely injured. But I still think there's a parallel that we can draw from this deal. David Bakhtiari at age 29 in 2020 signed a 4-year, $92 million contract with the Green Bay Packers. That's $23 million average annual value. And at the time, I think David Bakhtiari was perceived as potentially the best left tackle in the game. So I think it's good for us to bring that one up as comparable, but the reason I brought it to your attention is because I think that's another stratosphere that we're not in for Dion Dawkins right now. And then Mike McGlinchey, last offseason at age 27, signed a 5-year, $87.5 million deal with the Denver Broncos coming over from the San Francisco 49ers. That's an average annual value of $17.5 million. I think Dion Dawkins is a significantly better player than Mike McGlinchey, although he would be 2 years older at the time of this contract extension. So here's the offer. This is what I'm offering Dion Dawkins. I'm going to put his AAV at $18 million for 3 seasons. My contract offer to Dion Dawkins, and I think this is extremely fair, 3 years, $54 million. And if the Bills are able to pull that off, which I think is very much, it's a raise. It's a higher AAV than what he has right now. And that's a good chunk of change. That's a very fair offer, in my opinion. And I let me tell you this. Greg Thompson, Cover One, he is the guy when it comes to Bills, salary cap, contracts, all of that. So I spent this morning confirming everything with him to make sure that all this math checks out. And with this deal that I'm suggesting, this would open up between $6.5 and $7 million in 2024 cap space by extending Dion Dawkins. So that just seems like a win-win to me. You get cap space now, and you get Dion Dawkins locked up for 3 more seasons on top of 2024. So we have a great pathway to create some cap space courtesy of extending Dion Dawkins. Now I'm going to do the same thing for Taron Johnson and Rasul Douglas in our next 2 segments. And I'm going to get to some fun stuff here later on where I want to talk about what this means for the 2025 list of expiring contracts for the Buffalo Bills. So there's a good story to tell there. So be sure to stick with me. This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. Sometimes we all need the opportunity to get something off our chest. Big or small, certain things can really start to get to you. It's important to let that out, especially to someone who's unbiased on your life. Therapy can be different for everyone. Most of us have much bigger problems than what's going on with our favorite sports team, and it's important to get things off your chest every once in a while. Therapy is helpful for learning positive coping skills and how to set boundaries. It empowers you to be the best version of yourself. It's not just for people who have experienced major trauma. So if you're thinking of starting therapy, be sure to give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient and flexible and suited to your schedule. All you do is visit betterhelp.com/lockedon, and then that'll get you a great deal here, 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. All right, folks, let's talk about Taron Johnson, Bill's starting slot corner, a player that I think falls into a very similar conversation as Dion Dawkins, where he's in the last year of his contract, and the Bills can extend him, create cap space, and stay further committed to a player that's very much deserved the opportunity to have more years in Buffalo. So Taron Johnson is 27 years old. He'll turn 28 in July. He's playing scheduled to play in the last year of his contract, which was a 3-year, $24 million deal. And right now, his 2024 cap hit is scheduled to be $12.4 million. So you know the goal here. We want to bring that down. We want to spread out money to future years, and we want to keep Taron Johnson a Buffalo Bill for longer. So why does Taron Johnson deserve a contract extension? Well, he's really good. The performance is outstanding. I think the best way that I can tell you how good Taron Johnson is that this past year he was named second-team All-Pro slot corner, and he had 0 interceptions. And usually that's such a big deal for All-Pro teams, Pro Bowl, right? It's stats. It's stats-driven. The guy didn't have an interception, and he was second-team All-Pro. He's that good. What Taron Johnson means to the structure of the Bills' defense is literally an every down player. The role that he fills in the slot, he's playing on the second level. He's fitting the run. He's playing man-to-man coverage against tight ends and slots. He's playing zone. They really got creative with Taron Johnson at times in 2023 with the disguise looks. There's times that he's playing, lining up as a true slot corner. Then he's spinning out at the snap, and he's a cover 2 half-field safety. He's extremely valuable and versatile, and he does so much for this team. In fact, a lot of their coverage spacing is designed to funnel targets to Taron Johnson. The guy does a lot, and he's a dog. Like the way that he plays and takes on blocks and tackles and plays through contact, he is a dude on the football field. So he means a lot to the team. He's a high-level performer. He makes plays, and he's also durable. The first couple of years of Taron Johnson's career, he had some injury issues. But since 2020, this dude has been on point. He has missed 1 game since the start of 2020. So 65 of the last 66 games, Taron Johnson has been available for. The 1 game he missed was that Week 4 game against the Houston Texans, a game that I actually attended. And Cam Lewis started in the slot that day, and Taron Johnson was out. So he's durable, high-level performer, and at entering his age 28 season, I really have no concern about a drop-off in his level of performance. So let's get into the comparable contracts as we figure out what is a fair deal to offer Taron Johnson. I think there's 3 deals that makes a lot of sense to me that I would like to bring up to you. The first one is Cam Sutton at age 28 in 2023. So last offseason, Cam Sutton went from the Steelers to the Lions. The Lions signed him to a 3-year, $33 million contract. That's an average annual value of $11 million. I think that's a very, very good one for us to parallel to. Darius Williams at age 29 in 2022 with the Jacksonville Jaguars. He signed a 3-year, $30 million deal. That's an average annual value of $10 million. And then also Jonathan Jones with the New England Patriots at age 29 last offseason. He signed a 2-year, $19 million deal. That's an average annual value of $9.5 million. I would say pretty comfortably Taron Johnson's a better player than Jonathan Jones, Cam Sutton, and Darius Williams. So in terms of the contract offer, I have this at an average annual value of $12 million. That's a big bump, right? He was at $8 million AAV for his last 3-year contract, and we're going to give him a raise, and we're going to extend him out for 3 seasons. So my contract offer to Taron Johnson is 3 years, $36 million. I think that just feels like the right range. It's a little higher than Cam Sutton, and you kind of want to get ahead of like the Trent McDuffie deal. That's inevitably going to come here probably after next season because that's going to bump it up even more. That's the first team all-pro slot corner in the AFC. So 3 years, $36 million. That's my contract offer to Taron Johnson. I think that's extremely fair. And in doing so, and again, as cross-referenced by the great Greg Thompson, you do this deal, and the Bills can save between $4.5 million and $5 million in 2024 cap space by extending Taron Johnson to a 3-year, $36 million deal. So what we're doing is we're taking the base salary and the roster bonus, and we're going to spread that across the 4 years. We'll also be mindful of kind of what the minimum contracts are so that you can space this out effectively, and that's what happens. So we're creating, between $4.5 and $5 million in cap space just by extending Taron Johnson. This is good stuff, right? This is the easy part of it. You don't want to have to sit here and talk about, well, if you cut these 3, 4, 5, 6 players, you get your cap space. I'm creating cap space and I'm keeping good players. This is something that I'm sure Brandon Beane's going to do. I would actually predictively be surprised if these 3 things didn't happen. But I wanted today to kind of get ahead of the conversation and talk about what it can look like. That way, when these do come down the pike, it'll make a lot of sense to you. All right, let's do the same thing for Rasul Douglas here in just a moment. And then also, I want to talk about this big picture of where the Bills are in terms of cap and how these 3 extensions impact the 2025 list of free agents for the Buffalo Bills. So be sure to stick with me. Get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. And you can bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and more. They've already got football's futures bets on there, hockey, whatever sports you're into. FanDuel has some great action that you can get in on. So just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. Get that deal here. You get $150 in bonus bets if you just have a winning $5 bet. Again, check it out. FanDuel.com/lockedon. Shoot your shot. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. All right, folks, let's talk about Rasul Douglas. This is a fun one. Bills, this is a great trade. This trade still, I'm tickled by this trade. Rasul Douglas and a 5. Don't forget it. The Bills got a 5 back for a 3. Rasul Douglas and a 5 for a 3. So you basically just pick swapping a 5 for a 3 and getting Rasul Douglas. That was a great trade. The Packers were, what were they, like 3-6 at the time when they made the deal? Then they wind up going on a run and they get to the playoffs. They actually, Jordan Love really kind of turns it on. They look pretty good. They probably could have used Rasul Douglas down the stretch. Well, they don't have him, but they do have that 3rd-round pick. Enjoy, Green Bay. Make the most of it. We're going to enjoy Rasul Douglas. In fact, we're going to extend him and make sure that we enjoy all of what's left for Rasul Douglas. So Rasul Douglas is 29. He turns 30 in August. He's in the last year of his 3-year, $21 million contract that he signed with the Packers. His 2024 cap hit is scheduled to be $9 million, none of which is guaranteed. There's a lot of flexibility with this contract for Brandon Beane. So why does Rasul Douglas deserve a contract extension? Well, it's to me, it's very clear. He's a high-impact football player at a premium position. You have a third-round pick invested. That's not a ton, but it is something, right? You said this third-round pick, that's probably going to be around pick 100. We're going to say no to that, potentially a high-impact player on a rookie deal, and we would rather have Rasul Douglas. So you do have something already invested here, and you'd love to maximize your investment by having this player, Rasul Douglas, for as long as you can. I also think you need this player. The reality, the unfortunate reality is I just don't know what you can realistically expect from Tre'Davious White. 2 of the last 3 years, major injuries in the ACL tear and the Achilles. And I think it would be unwise to have eggs in that basket and count on something. Now, I'm not dismissing it. I'd love it. I love Trey White, one of my favorite Buffalo Bills of the last 10, 15 years. There's no doubt about it. If you can get something out of Trey White, you take it. But how do you count on that? I think that would be irresponsible. And so, absent of Trey White, you don't have the veteran at outside corner, right? It's Christian Benford, Kyer Elam, 2 young players, and I really like Benford. But you want to have this veteran glue piece to your cornerback room, and that's what Rasul Douglas can provide for you while you're still in limbo on anything with Trey White. I also love that Rasul Douglas takes away the ball. He intercepts it. He recovers fumbles. He tackles. He's just a quality football player. He's also durable. He's a guy that when you go throughout his career, he's only missed 4 games due to injury in his entire career. That's it, right? Like there's been times where he was trying to find the right spot for him to play, and he might not have been on an active roster, missed a game due to COVID when he was with the Panthers, like stuff like that happened. But in terms of actual missing time due to injury, 4 games. So he's durable, high-level performer. You have something invested in him already. You can maximize that by extending him. So let's look at the comparable contracts that I'd like to invoke for this conversation to tell you where I land on Rasul Douglas. I think there's 3 deals that make a lot of sense for us to look at. This is the most important one. It's James Bradberry at age 29. And again, that's exactly what Rasul Douglas is right now, 29. So at age 29, James Bradberry with the Eagles in 2023 signed a 3-year, $38 million contract. That's an average annual value of $12.6 million. I think this is a very, very clean one-for-one parallel. 2 more that I like to bring up. Darius Slay at age 31. That's much older. And Darius Slay, obviously, very decorated cornerback in the NFL. In 2023, he signed a 3-year, $42 million deal with the Eagles. That's a $14 million AAV. So you can see a little bit higher there for Slay. Then also Darius Williams. This is another one that I already brought up, but I want to bring it up again here. Darius Williams, age 29 in 2022, signed that 3-year, $30 million deal with the Jaguars. That's a $10 million AAV. So here's what I'm suggesting for Rasul Douglas. I'm going to put his average annual value at $12.5 million, and I'm going to offer him a 2-year, $25 million deal. That's a bump of, that's $5.5 million raise on this contract compared to the last one. And of course, this does the thing where you extend Rasul Douglas, you get cap savings this year. Again, and this is confirmed by Greg Thompson, the Bills would save between $6 and $6.5 million in 2024 cap space with this contract extension that I am suggesting for Rasul Douglas. Again, win-win. More Rasul Douglas, more cap space when you need it desperately. So let's do the math here. We've done some good stuff. And I'm going to go on the low end of my projections. Dion Dawkins, that extension frees up $6.5 million. Taron Johnson, that extension frees up $4.5 million. Rasul Douglas, that extension frees up $6 million. You add that together, these 3 extensions creates $17 million in 2024 cap space. That's exciting. That's a great way to get $17 million in cap space. Oh, by the way, with one swipe you restructure, you do a base restructure for Josh Allen, and that frees up $23 million. So now $17 million from these 3 contract extensions, $23 million from a base restructure of Josh Allen. There's $40 million in cap space that we just created with 3 extensions and a Josh Allen restructure. $40 million. Right now, the Bills are over the cap by $50.6 million. And that's assuming a $242 million cap. Well, there's $40 million. We just got 10.6 left to go to get cap compliant, and there's plenty of other levers that they can pull. And that's not even, like, at the beginning of this conversation, I talked to you about some reports that the cap could be as high as 250. If that happens, the Bills are cooking. You got the $40 million that I just created, plus another 8 because the cap is higher. And now all of a sudden you only need $3 more million to become cap compliant. So it's a very daunting situation. But then when you start to get into it, and honestly, this is just barely getting into it. This is 3 extensions and 1 contract restructure. There are so many more opportunities with the existing contracts to create cap space. It's going to be all right. The Bills are going to be all right. The other part of this that I think is really, really cool is when you peek ahead to 2025 and the free agents that the Bills will have there. You just eliminated 3 of the biggest ones. Dawkins, Johnson, Douglas. Those are gone off the list. Here's the remaining list of expiring contracts for the Buffalo Bills in 2025. It's Mitch Morse, and maybe you're happy about that. And Mitch Morse could be another player that we do the same thing here where you extend him out, you create cap space. Spencer Brown, that could be the big one. Jordan Poyer, probably going to be the last year if he's back anyways. Then it's Deontay Hardy, if he's back. Nyheim Hines, if he's back. Saron Neal, Reggie Gilliam, DeMar Hamlin, Reed Ferguson, Tommy Doyle. That's it. Like, that's a very unconcerning list of 2025 free agents. Now, that doesn't include anybody on a 1-year deal. So the Bills are surely going to sign a bunch of these Taylor Rapps, Leonard Floyds, Poona Fords, those types of guys. They'll all be added again this year, Trent Sherfields, all those types of players. But as you look at it right now, you do what I say here. You take care of Dawkins, Johnson, Douglas. Your biggest contracts that are expiring in 2025 are Mitch Morse, Spencer Brown, Jordan Poyer. It's going to be all right, folks. The Bills' Super Bowl window is open, and it's just about Brandon Beane filling in the blanks along the way. And some good injury luck would be helpful, and some more playoff luck would certainly be helpful as well, especially when you play that team from Kansas City. All right, folks, there you have it. How the Bills can create a bunch of cap space by extending 3 really good players and some overall perspective on the Bills' cap position and where things are headed. All right, really enjoyed this. Got a great one coming for you on Friday. I still have to execute it, so I won't tell you exactly what it is, but be on the lookout for an awesome episode coming your way on Friday. Don't miss anything. Make sure that you're subscribed. Would love it if you took a second to rate, review, and share the podcast. Have a great rest of your day. Go Bills, and I look forward to catching up with you again tomorrow.